It was the 30th anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing that killed 168 people and still remains one of the worst acts of homegrown terrorism in the nation's history. The early morning of April 19, 1995 was described by survivors as nice. One woman recalled the perfect blue sky, but all of that would change at exactly 9:02 a.m. A truck parked outside the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City exploded, and the FBI quickly arrived at the scene of the bombing to help with rescue efforts while they started their investigation. On April 20th, the FBI discovered the rear axle of a truck. This had an ID number which led agents to the suspect, Timothy McVeigh. On April 21st, the FBI learned that McVeigh was already in jail after an Oklahoma trooper stopped him north of Oklahoma City just 90 minutes after the bombing for a missing license plate. In the days following the explosion, it was discovered that McVeigh was a former U.S. Army soldier who served in the Gulf War. He was associated with an extreme right-wing and militant patriot movement. McVeigh told the FBI he chose Oklahoma City as his target to avenge the raid on the compound of a religious sect in Waco. 168 people were killed in the bombing, including 19 children, and about 850 were injured. McVeigh was charged with conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction, destruction by explosive, and 8 counts of first-degree murder. He was found guilty on all counts on June 2nd, 1997. On June 11th, 2001, Timothy McVeigh was executed. And now, 30 years later in Oklahoma City, the community is still here and remembers each and every one of those victims. Mark Lowe from our sister station was at yesterday's memorial.
19th, 1995 started out as an ordinary workday for hundreds of Oklahomans at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building until it seemed like the world came crashing down. A truck bomb exploded, taking the lives of 168 men, women, and children, and injuring hundreds more. Today, the place where the building once stood looks totally different, and the bombing seems like a distant memory. But for those who lived through it, they remember it like it was just yesterday.
So I was 1 year old. My brother just turned 2 5 days before the bombing. From what I remember, it's just, I went through the trials of PTSD with my therapist, Back in the day, I was really just afraid of, loud noises,
It was through the darkness of the black smoke that rose that what's been called the Oklahoma Standard shined through. Giving as much as one could selflessly in a time of need showed the world what Oklahomans were all about.
We saw the very best of Oklahoma. We saw helpers, people who didn't wait to be asked, who ran towards danger, who gave without hesitation.
For former President Bill Clinton, he saw it for himself 30 years ago when he came to OKC in the aftermath of the bombing. He says that standard still shows proudly today, and no matter what happens, Oklahomans will always not only get back up, but back each other up.
The domestic terrorists who did this awful thing believed that it would spark a nationwide upheaval. Instead, you gave them the Oklahoma Standard.
If you look around, you can just see, somehow, some way we're all connected, whether that be just like the event that happened that brought us here is very unsettling, just to have faith, hope, and love. And I like to say that we're all family here, tied to one way or another.
And closer to home, Texomans mourn the loss of loved ones and recall bitter memories of havoc from that awful morning. We now know him as Choctaw County Sheriff Terry Park, but 30 years ago, he was one of the brave officers working in Oklahoma City just moments after the explosion. News 12 spoke with Sheriff Park last year about some of those memories, still fresh on his mind.
You go off into the first floor and there's babies laying there, and most of them that we picked up were charcoal gray.
Sheriff Park says he attended close to 30 funerals that year, but that wasn't even a third of what was held for all the lives lost. Another life gone too soon was someone who worked in Grayson County. Late Cindy Campbell Brown was married just 6 weeks before her life was taken. Her boss, Bill Bristow, the former director of Grayson County Juvenile Services, spoke with News 12 last year and says her name shall never be forgotten.
Cindy's spirit came from a very loving and caring man. And so both of them need to be remembered, not because of the tragedy, but because of the lives they led.
The lives impacted by the bombing stretched across miles, states, and so did the physical damage, impacting more than just the federal building. Oklahoma City's final report on the damage caused by the bombing stated that more than 300 buildings were damaged in a 48-square block. The blast caused a 9-story hole in the Murrah building and left an 8-foot crater in the ground where the truck had been parked. The blast and the aftershocks were felt for miles, and this is where the federal building was located. According to reports, more than 5,000 pounds of explosives were used to make that bomb, and when it went off, the blast could be felt up to 55 miles away by the Kansas state line. These attacks have had an extensive effect on people across the country, impacting their physical safety and mental health, even long after the catastrophe.